I gave it a name, Palmivir, just for the convenience sake. So, objective of this study are to understand the correlation between Palmivir and pandemic-like situation, this COVID or any other situation. Then describe etiology, pathology, diagnosis of Palmivir, and initiate a discussion about the ways to stop the spread of Palmivir, because as we already know that these kind of things are mostly not talked about. And then to understand the scope of gender issues and the possible manifestations of it. Methodology, as I already explained, that I have studied multiple journals and articles published by acclaimed organization on whose data and report I can trust on. And then I have analyzed and I am trying to present it so that we can understand and initiate a discussion about it in order to prevent it. Then here it is, like, what is Palmivir? Who is this? So etiology is like where it comes. So it comes from sensitization and internalization about male dominance and female psyche. Like when a child is born, since then whatever we do, the way we make the female child feel that how the another gender is stronger than you. So once we grow up, we kind of internalize that, okay, we need some male to protect us. So that way. And then there is institutionalization of male dominance with belief, practices, and myths. Like in every culture, we have that. And then language, including abuses, which are always putting women down. I mean, I would not get into that, but we already know, right? So, and then putting all the domestic duties on women, be it cleaning, cooking, childcare, or elderly care, or whatever is not specifically mentioned for men, it comes on women. Even if we have domestic help, and if the help is only, it is mostly it is a woman duty to get into the kitchen and do the job. And then obviously we have wrong notion of ideal women. Our ideal women about in the stories, in the mythological things, and always they're always like, for example, actually I don't want to name it, but yeah, they are not very fighter woman, very strong, the one who takes time for themselves. They're mostly there are wrong notions. So what is the pathology? How this virus presented? The pathology is there is severe damage to the psyche of women gender, which according to me is the most serious damage. Then there's irreversible damage to women's confidence and dignity. She never feels good enough and strong enough to do the things which she can actually do. Then inflammation, wound, injury on female's body and mind. Here I'm talking about domestic violence or any kind of like sexual violence and all that. And then there is behavioral and emotional disturbance in the children. The children, it could be male or female, but if there is domestic violence in the family, then children are definitely getting affected. Diagnosis, how this virus can be diagnosed. It can be diagnosed through lens of feminism. My feminism, I don't know, since this feminism concept is really confusing and people give different definitions. According to me, feminism is simply a place where you can provide equal opportunity to both the genders. So that way, and solidarity among women, why I said that, because I feel and I have whatever I studied the information, I realized that women help women little lesser than they should help, like they should help more. So if there is solidarity among women, we can diagnose this virus and can get this treated. So what happens when this virus, the Palmivir virus, meets corona or some virus like this? So what happened? Let's see. So when corona was killing people, it was attacking economy, families were struggling, business was struggling, companies were struggling. Palmivir was killing millions of female embryos, snipping zillion girls' dream, sidelining LGBTs, forcing women to choose between child and care, then murdering her, killing her, suffocating her, raping her, you name it, and it was doing everything. So what it did basically, it created an extremely abusive and hostile environment, which led to devastating physical, social, economical, psychological consequences, specifically for women and girls and LGBT, of course. the exposure and opportunity for abuse increases because they were locked down, and they were like there were no one to intervene to protect the women. Mobility was restricted. People were living in the closed spaces, so there were more contact inside. There were less contact outside. Your predator was living inside. It was giving too much opportunity to him to create grave dangers. Then there were stay-at-home directives, isolations, increased stress. I don't know, maybe we are only justifying this way that there was too much stress and loss of job opportunity. So that way, but that's how they were disrespecting family members. There were risk of violence, particularly on older person and youth. In lockdown, the virus is mirroring and magnifying the discrimination. It's true that it was already there. It is not that it came there. It was already there, but then the cracks, we can actually see what is happening. Otherwise, it was more visible on our faces in male-dominated society at that time. Then there is some statistic, like a recent survey in Iran found that more than 50% of respondents have experienced increased violence. The world women are disproportionately carrying the burden of home and in the wider economy. Then it was called human crisis because it was not only healthcare crisis. So what is human crisis? Human crisis is a much bigger and serious crisis than just health crisis. It is spreading human suffering, infecting the global economy, and upending people's lives. LGBT people have their issues. They were suffer significantly from the pandemic. Services have reported and perception deteriorating mental health also, and mental health otherwise also, and then mental health issues in women increases many times. There's some more. The National Commission of Women have received twofold rise complaint regarding domestic violence during initial lockdown period. Domestic violence cases reported to local police tripled in February at height of coronavirus crisis in China. In Tunisia, calls to hotline for women abusers fivefold. In Spain, call to state-run hotline increased by 12.5%, and online consultancy grew by 270%. If we see UK, then call to hotline for women abuse increased by 65% immediately after COVID-19 lockdown. Cyprus also had witnessed 30% increase in first week of stay-at-home measures. Turkey police emergency line got overwhelmed, so much so that women failed to get through a responder. In France, police reported nationwide spike of about 30% in domestic violence. Now, this is one report, Violence Against Women, WHO. According to this, there are few stats. Over a quarter of women aged 15 to 49 years who have been in a relationship have been subjected to physical and sexual violence by their intimate partner at least once in their life since age 15. The prevalence estimate of lifetime intimate partner violence range from 20% in the Western Pacific, 22% in high-income countries and Europe, and 25% in WHO region of the American, and 33% in WHO African region, 31 in Eastern Mediterranean, and 33 in Southeast Asian. So you see, it's not like any particular country or any particular state or any development. Nothing helps. Problem is there. Problem is everywhere. 42% of women who have experienced intimate partner violence reporting an injury as a consequence of this violence, which means this is a more serious kind of violence. And we should already understand that quite a big amount of these kind of violence are not reported at first. So what are reported, and then 42% of these are, the violence injuries. So we can understand the real problem. Then globally, about 1 in 3, that is 30% of women worldwide have been subjected to either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence in their lifetime. Then there is some example of India. I have cautiously selected different states. One is Chennai, Vadodara, Assam, and Uttarnagar, Delhi, just to show you that problem lies everywhere in India too. So in Chennai, a woman, Parvati, 25-year-old woman, she was severely beaten by her alcoholic husband. And Normally what she would do is she would run away, she'd run outside, she'll scream, so neighbor would come and help. And every time she'll do this and this will help. But when the lockdown happened and there was police barricading, she cannot go out to seek the intervention of neighbors. So his husband beaten her really badly. Then in Vadodara, a man working with a private electronic company, he break his 24-year wife's spine simply because she defeated him in an online Ludo. I mean, how does that even, it is even important. But then he mercilessly trashed her and as she keeps on defeating him. So it shows that problem lies there is so fragile male ego that even as small as an online game can actually instigate it. Then in Delhi, a mother of two toddlers, she has serious physical abuse at the hand of her husband and family. Initially, police thought, as police does in North India mostly, like they try mediating that, okay, fine, just make peace with it. But then when problem increases, finally that woman have to shift to shelter home. Then in Assam, a woman crossed to paddy field with her 5-month-old child to seek refuge in her parents' home from her abusive husband during the lockdown. So that is one this. Now we have seen the problem, how serious the problem is. Is there any treatment? Because we are not having any vaccine or something, so maybe we can do something about it. So let's talk about it and we can see what we can do. So there's one which I come across is gender justice. So what is gender justice? It is as small as that you just start share household chores. Advocate diaper changing facilities in all public bathrooms. I mean, suppose if a person, a man, he actually want to do it, but then these are not available there, right? So when you don't even have the resources and system in place, you cannot ask a man to go change the diaper of kid. So first we should also provide the facilities in all public bathroom, then only we can have this. Then notice sign of violence and seek help. If you or you know anybody, they are suffering in abusive relationship, our government is really trying hard and the kind of advocating people to come across, like they have this one ad I remember, ring the bell, that whenever you heard a domestic violence, just go ring the bell. So when the person who is hitting or beating, he'll stop immediately. So that way. Then we really need to teach our sons and daughters the difference between adjustment and harassment in marriage. I don't know about the whole India, but yes, in northern India, uh, we have been, I mean, not in our generation, but yeah, till now, what was happening whenever if a girl says that, okay, there is this problem in my in-laws house with my husband or whosoever, she would be told that that's how the marriage is and you should actually adjust. No, this is not adjustment. So we need to teach our girl what the adjustment and harassment. We also need to teach our boys that what adjustment you can expect and what you should not. Then we should scold chauvinist and racist attitude. This also includes jokes, because jokes, as small as it may sound, it kind of making things normal, that okay, fine, this works, that's how it is, there's not much problem. Like if we talk about body shaming, okay, so body shaming, there's lots of jokes about body shaming, but now when we understand that, okay, this is a problem, so when if somebody cracks a joke on that kind of thing and you happen to be there, so stand for that, be you a man or a woman or whosoever. Then vote for women in politics. I'm not saying like unnecessarily vote for women in politics just because she's a woman, but then have a attitude. According to 2017 data from UN Women, only 17 countries have female heads of state or government. And then in India, we have this problem, especially in smaller representation. If a woman, even if she is elected, mostly she is elected because we have a woman's seat reserved. So she is elected. Then even if she is elected, everyone else consider there's something called a husband of elected leader. So he does all the work and women just become like a rubber stamp. So that should not happen. Then support mothers and parents. This problem I have personally seen in metros of Delhi, that if a woman comes with a child, a male offers the seat, but if a male comes with a child, a normal woman, like young woman, she mostly will not leave her seat, which meant for her. But actually, this should not happen. Parent is a parent. If he is having a child or she is having a child, if you can, please offer your seat to anybody standing with a kid. Then listen and reflect. I see one of the main obstacle in any prejudice is that we don't recognize that this exists. And this is very much true for domestic violence. So we need to understand that there is this problem, and then only we can take steps to solve it. Then value, encourage, and hire different kind of teams. This is for offices. So there's this Boston Consulting Group study in 2018. It was very interesting. They mentioned that to make sure that you are just free of all the biases, just remove all the names, photos, and address from CV. When you don't know the name, you cannot judge the sex. You don't have the photo, so you cannot go on beauty standards anyways. And then you don't have address, so you don't even know where the person belongs. So now if you will select, it will be purely based on their skills and expertise. So you will have a good team. So I like that, that's why I put it here. Then provide and demand equal wage for same position. There are a lot of discussion going on about this in film industry since long time. But otherwise also everywhere a woman is paid little lesser than the men for the same position. So that should go away. Then support each other a little more. This is specifically for women. Then countries should honor their commitment to increase and a strong political will and leadership to tackle violence against women in all forms. So how they can do it? They should sound gender transformative policy around childcare, like uh, maternity leave is fine. But then after 6 months, if you expect a mother to just leave the child at home and come back to work, it's difficult. So there should be some childcare policies. Like I think they already have, like if you have more than 30 people, there should be a crutch. But then it's not happening in reality. And then law to support gender equality. A strengthened health system response that ensure access to survivor center care, like and referral to another services as needed. Schools and educational intervention to challenge discriminatory attitude. If you read any NCRT book, and whenever there will be, now slowly it is changing, but initially what was happening, mostly they'll show a woman in kitchen and men working, okay, in all the images and figure. Now imagine you are teaching that book to a 4-year, 5-year, 6-year, 7-year-old. So the understanding with that kid is getting is that, okay, this is the mother's job and this is the father's job. So why not sometimes just change it, just reverse the thing. So that way you can, intervene there and can change the discriminatory attitude and belief. So the child who is reading and growing, they will happen to be, gender equal people. Then target investment in sustainable and effective evidence-based prevention strategies at local, national, regional, and global events. Strengthening data collection and investing in high quality surveys on violence against women. This is going to be difficult because mostly it would not be reported, it would not be reported completely, and all those things will happen, but we can always take steps and try for better. Then these are the critical findings. This mostly will be repetition. Like 35% of women have experienced physical or sexual violence. Calls to helpline increased twice to 5-fold, varying across countries. Female job loss rate due to COVID-19 was about 1.8 times higher than male job. And we need to know that women anyways makes 39% of employment, but still their job loss was much higher. An estimate published by WHO indicate that globally about 30% of women have faced the domestic violence. I already mentioned it. So what is the conclusion? Conclusion is Pandemic works as growing medium for parvovirus. It is already there, but in pandemic-like situation or any situation which creates, difficult circumstances, this virus grows exponentially and manifests in different form, frequency, and severity. Emergencies like this pandemic exacerbate violence, increasing vulnerability and risk. WHO and partner warns that COVID-19 pandemic has further increased women exposure to violence as a result of measures such as lockdown and disruption to vital support system. And we know that this is true. So COVID-19 have triggered a shadow pandemic. This is the name given because there was increased reported violence of all kinds against women and girls. This was told by UN Women Executive Director. And he shares that every government should be taking strong and proactive steps to address this and involving women in doing so. So violence in it all forms can have impact on women's health and well-being throughout and rest of her life, even long after the violence may have ended, because it may have ended physically, but then psychological damage has been done. So it is associated with increased risk of injury, depression, anxiety disorder, unplanned pregnancies, STIs, including HIV and other health problems. It has impact on society as a whole and comes with a tremendous cost impacting national budget and overall development of a country. Preventing violence requires addressing systemic, economic, and social inequalities, ensuring access to education and safe work, and changing discriminatory gender norms and institutions. It could be culture, it could be education, it could be practices, could be anything. Successful intervention also includes strategy that ensure essential services are available and accessible to survivor. The support system, organization challenge equitable social norm, reform discriminatory laws, and strengthening legal response, among others. Children who grow up in this kind of family, they suffer different kind of problems. So they are also associated with perpetrating of experiencing violence later in life. So that should be taken care of, and we should make sure that children do not suffer. Anyway, no one should suffer, but then this is specific one. Intimate partner violence has also been associated with high rates of infant and child mortality and morbidity. So what is the magic drug? Can we do something about it? So magic drug here is respect. So what is respect? Respect is relationship skills strengthening, empowerment of women, and all the services should be ensured which require to keep domestic violence at bay or under control. Poverty should be reduced. I could not find exact study associated with this, but yes, socioeconomic data does matter. So if we reduce poverty, that will help. Then enabling environment, school, workplace, and public health creating means your school must have toilets, okay, so that girls don't drop out. Your offices, they must have childcare facilities or, maybe feeding room or that way. Then child and adolescent abuse should be prevented. And then T is transformed attitude, belief, and norms. So this is it from my side. And these are the references if anyone is interested in reading more about it. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you, Neelam, for such a comprehensive paper. And it took up all the macro issues. Previous two papers were based on micro reality and primary data collection. But this kind of a very macro view is also very important because you went into the patriarchal ideology, the systemic and structural violence which the women have to face both at an interpersonal level, at a community level, and what kind of remedies that we need to have. This thing. So I don't have any questions, but if other participants, if they want to ask any question, then
Thank
platform
you,
is open. Yeah. So now we have the next paper, Sujata Verma's paper, Impact of COVID-19 Pandemic on Women Work Participation in India. Yeah. Sujata, are you ready? Dr. Sujata Verma, are you ready? Hello? Hello. Dr. Sujata Verma, are you ready? We are not
Yes,
able
ma'am.
to hear. Okay, okay. Please
Ma'am?
go ahead. Yeah. You had shared your paper. What happened?
Just a minute, ma'am. I will share again.
Okay, okay.
Ma'am, visible?
Yes, it is visible. You can take full screen. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. I am big fan of Vibhuti, ma'am. I listen to you a lot, ma'am. In TISS and outside the pandemic talks, beyond the pre-pandemic talks. So I'm very happy you are here, ma'am. So my
I'm
topic
also
is impact of COVID-19 pandemic on women work participation in India. And I worked as a technical advisory committee of COVID-19, and I was also the member of hostel warden committee then during pandemic. Before the lockdown, I solved many life problems of the lockdown and the unlock period. And I solved two major sexual harassment case, mental harassment case as a member of ICC during the lockdown and unlock period. So I will share my own experience towards this in addition to the women work participation challenges during the pandemic. So these pictures, you can see women are facing a lot of problems of migration, then work participation, then health related challenges. So I will be focusing major on the women's work participation, but the impact is huge on their health. That also I would like to share. So the background is very simple. We all are aware in this forums, SDG goal number 5, which is when women do better, economies do better. But the picture is not very fancy in India right now because the statistics is not very good in favor of women as far as work participation is concerned. The UN Women data suggested this those women who are losing jobs during the pandemic, they will go to extreme poverty, and right now it's around 5 crore and it may increase up to 13% as far as 2021 projection is concerned. And in India, the picture is very bad. Before the pandemic, we have very few women in the workforce, and now the situation is going very bad also post-pandemic in the new normal situation, I would say. That is also not very fancy picture. So Prime Minister has very good vision transforming India, women lead development. So the need for this study is, if we really want to transform India, we should realize the full potential of women lead development. Without women, India cannot progress. We should not give the statistics of GDP, or we should not give the statistics of the import export or the bolte na good fancy budgets. These are not fancy figures which will not support the women, so it won't support the government at all. This is my own personal understanding. If we really want to transform India, we should transform the women lead development. So my previous author already shown this is a global concern, missing women in the workforce. Pre-pandemic and the post-pandemic situation is very bad. Only one line I would like to add. Women are more in the service sector as far as picture is concerned. 2/3 women are in the service sector, and they are losing the jobs, and they are doing mostly this education, health or social work or domestic works related jobs, and they are losing the jobs and they are not paid properly during this pandemic. So this is the diagram of this map shows the Hindi belt in India scores low while the South does better. Female labor force participation. So during this pandemic, what I feel, rural women are leaving workforce at a faster rate before the pandemic, but now the urban women are also facing this problem because of the various conditions, and all the classifications already shown by the previous authors. So I will share my own thoughts in the objectives of mine. My first objective is how the current pandemic and business loss impacted women in India, and what is the correlation between women economic empowerment and health utilization during pandemic. Okay, so the mixed method approach data has been used because of the constraints. And in this context, the mixed methodology has been used to analyze the data. I collected some qualitative data also to support my secondary data findings. And these data has been collected from the organized and unorganized sector, especially in the northern and western part of the India, uh, through various telephonic and various approaches of the data collection. So the major finding is this: the urban female employment rate, which was stood at 21.9% compared to 11.7% for males during pandemic. So the unemployment is increasing, but if we see the gender-wise, the female unemployment is more than the male unemployment rate. EPFO data, which is a very important data for the organized sector, those who are getting PFs. So this is going down marginally in the month of July when the unlock 1 was started. And in unlock 2, 3, 4, all these months, I was watching regularly this data. The number of joining females in EPFO is going down and down. This CMIE data also said the same thing. The labor force participation rate is going down for female as compared to the male. Okay, and Delhi, which is the most urbanized, Delhi NCR, which is the most urbanized and most employed for female, has seen highest unemployment rate during this phases of May to August 2020. And this pandemic, what is the cause of concern? In this context, I would want to highlight whatever we have done in the previous year in favor of the work participation of the women, or the financial literacy of the women, or the various schemes of the government. This pandemic has put up a lot of things into the back drop of the water. So this is the cause of the concern. Now, I have 3 HR analytics person in my team. In this, during data collection, these what they said, there are 2 sides of the coin. Expert of these organizations said that women, especially young women having children, hesitate to join the new work if because of the fear of the infection, and this create a divide between life or job. So women are very sensitive, they are very emotionally connected with the children, so they want their child should be safe at home, so they are not interested to join the workforce. And one more side of the employer side, where they are also reluctant to recruit and promote or renew the contract of the women's in service sector because they are having household or children responsibility. So the one employer said ki, I don't want the women, those who are having more responsibility towards the family because of the targets which they could not achieve in the last year. So this is their feedback, and these are the top most companies, really employee friendly companies. So I'm very shameful to these people, but they are my friends, so I know this is happening. Urban women saw the deepest loss because of the online schooling and the household work without help. So I found in this Indian Staffing Federation, which is the umbrella companies of staffing. So they are analyzing ki earlier the urban women are increasing the work participation rate, but then things are going down and down because of the pandemic. So before the pandemic, I was the PI of NFHS 5 Maharashtra. So what I was feeling that time, I was very happy this domestic violence is decreasing, economic empowerment is increasing in Maharashtra, education of women is very good, means it's all the things are very very well going. So I was feeling so happy as compared to NFHS 4. NFHS 5 is showing very positive trend towards the women economic empowerment. One can see in IIPS website also this data is available now. But right now, the picture is just opposite. My previous author said this about the domestic violence. One health concern I would like to share with you. According to, I work with UNFPA, so I usually watch their data. UNFPA analyzed this 2 to 3 million unwanted pregnancy in the 9 months of the lockdown. So this is very bad, I would say, because this family planning operation already is facing a lot of challenges, and now we have additional this 2 to 3 million worse than their serious complications. And most of the abortion in India, this IPAS, one of the development partner with uh, National Health Mission, and one Mary Stopes, MSI. These people are working in the family planning sector, abortion and this IUD. So they told this figures ki this country lockdown has both are very dangerous for the abortion, which is the medical abortion, more than 7 weeks, because major abortion happens in India before the 7th week of the pregnancy. But right now, because of the lockdown and because of the haphazard of the bolte na public health system, these abortions got late. So these things and these family planning services are not available because of the various supply chain issues. So these things are bolte very, very bad for the next couple of years for the women. So whatever we are looking in today's scenario, this will impact in bolte next 3 to 5 years on the health of the women. And in the long run, they will face many complications. So this is the analysis of HMIS data by the PRC. All the services of health, medical termination of pregnancy, institutional birth, ANC, PNC, C-section, and the family planning services all going down in the last 4 years. If we compare the last 4 years, first quarter data of the HMIS, only Q1 data, that is April to June data. So all the services are affected hugely because of this lockdown. So this is a very bad picture as far as health utilization is concerned for the women. A summary in conclusion for my paper is this: women as a head of household or working in informal sector and having adolescent or reproductive age group, adult women, they are more affected than the older women in all the dimension of the SDG goal number 5. And women economic empowerment, which is positively correlated with their mental, physical, emotional, education, health of self, and especially for the children, that is affected. Migrant women suffered more than the non-migrant women. Or there is no scheme I have seen promote back to work scheme for the women from neither from the government nor from the private sector. I worked with many organizations heads, but I haven't seen any women friendly scheme back to work scheme. So this is my cause of concern. And if this is just a in this context, I would like to add, if we increase 10 percentage point the women's labor force, India GDP will increase 770 billion by World Bank in 2025. So this is my concern ki we should think about it, how to get back to work schemes for the women. So I request all the panelists and all the team members, please work on this direction because we all are working in this direction. So the policy implication is this: we have a very good data, secondary data from NFHS and LASI, which is a very authentic data for women economic empowerment. So we should work now for the implementation, because I worked with in IIPS alumni. I know many things from UNFPA or the many things from public health side, but there are very few people, they know how to implement this welfare policy. And share and care at individual, not at individual, but at household and community level, like self-help group strategy. We all are familiar with this Lijjat Papad story, Seva story, and this Rufil story, Amul story. All these are the outcome of this community level share and care. And the PPP model, we should work on this. Why we are always worried about the labor policy for the government sector or the private sector? We should have some uniformity in this context. So this is my views on this. Thanks to all.
Thank you, Dr. Sujata Verma, for such a illuminating presentation. You are so erudite, and with your experience of grassroots level work, you have combined both the primary data along with the analytical vision with the gender lens, and all official data sources also you have applied. And along with that, you have also come up with a very comprehensive policy interventions that both the state and state civil society and the employers organization, they need to take up. And I think it's a very insightful presentation that you made. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, very good work.
Ma'am, can I call you after some time?
Yeah, you can. Yes, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am.
Okay. So now I think the paper by Dr. Christine Matthew and Joyce Cheston on impact of COVID-19 pandemic, a study on divorced mothers and mother undergoing divorce in Kottayam district. Again, an extremely important area that you have a multiple marginalities and the whammies that you face if there is a pandemic, and then there is the shadow pandemic of painful divorce processes that women have to face. And please go ahead. Yeah, Christine and Joyce. Yeah.
Yeah. First of all, good evening, ma'am. Myself, Christine Matthews.
Yeah.
I'm a PhD research scholar at Tata Institute of Social Sciences with the School of Social Work. And my colleague, she's Joyce Justin. She's a senior HR manager at Thomas Cook, and our paper is all about impact of COVID-19 pandemic, a study on divorced mothers and mothers undergoing divorce in Kottayam district, Kerala. So when we move further.
Yeah, please go ahead.
I'm not able to.
Slide is not going ahead.
Yeah.
Dr. Rangsami, can you help? Hello, Dr. Preeti Dillon? Okay, good. Yeah, it's moving. It's moving.
Yeah. So when it comes to the introduction, it's talking about divorce is a phenomena that legally separate woman from her marital relationship. That is operational definition for divorce according to my study. Then divorced single mothers are a population that are facing lots of problem and challenges to deal with the development of their children. And another viewpoint is also shared over there. During COVID-19 pandemic situation, this population had lots of challenges in terms of economic and social support as a main indicators over there. And divorce is directly affecting the family with lots of lot of further consciousness because of situational crisis of COVID-19 pandemic. And this study is mainly looking on challenges faced by divorced mothers and mothers currently going through the divorce process during this 1 year of COVID-19 pandemic. And when it comes to the methodology, the first objective is talking about to understand the challenges faced by rural as well as urban divorced mothers in terms of their status, location, and other social agents during COVID-19 pandemic situation. So 3 variables, status, location, and social agents are trying to explore to a quantitative study. And second objective is to understand the difficulties of rural and urban mothers currently going through divorce process in COVID-19 pandemic with regards to gender violence, distress, and vulnerability as 3 themes of investigation. So when we talk about research design, I used sequential explanatory mixed method research design. First of all, quantitative phase is mainly looking on the impact of status of divorced mothers and how that is affecting the location and social support system of divorced mothers. When it comes to the qualitative phase, try to explore distress of divorced mothers, their vulnerability, and stigma of mothers undergoing through divorce during the pandemic crisis. How these 3 thematic variables are relevant over there in COVID-19 pandemic situation. And when we move further, I would like to explain about the location. The location of the study is Kottayam district, Kerala. So I had bifurcated the location itself into two different areas. First of all, rural area. The rural area of East Peninsula location consists of rubber plantations, agriculture, and agro-based activities and engagements are the main area is consist of this rural area, and livelihood opportunities were associated to these expertise. Then when it comes to urban area, educational institutions, marketing companies, and small scale and large scale business enterprises are associated to urban area and its own expertise. And when it comes to sampling design, quantitative data, I used a purposive sampling technique because the population itself is very sensitive. So need to identify the population and to go about the purpose of the study is also really important. So that was more convenient for me to do that. And qualitative data, convenient sampling technique had used. Then sample size, quantitative data made 30 divorced mothers from rural area and 13 divorced mothers from the urban area had chosen for quantitative data analysis. For qualitative data, 30 mothers undergoing divorce from both the rural and urban areas are interviewed through an in-depth interview guide to gather the report.
Are they 3 or 30?
3, ma'am, 3. For qualitative, 3 from both rural and urban areas.
Okay.
So the first major theme is talking about the challenge of divorced mothers in terms of social status, location, and social agent. So first one is mainly talking about the status of divorced mothers during COVID-19 pandemic. So the status is explained into 3 different variables. One is education, employment, and living arrangements. When it comes to education, 4 subpoints are there. School levels of education is mentioned over there. School education, undergraduate, postgraduate, and no educational attainments by the participants. So when we analyze the data, it is evident that in the rural areas, around 50%, 48% of the divorced mothers is only having school level of education, as the data is showing that. And when it comes to the urban population, 48% of divorced mothers is having undergraduate level of education, and 16% is having postgraduate level of education. So when we discuss the findings, we will go about the much more about the data. And when the second variable is talking about the employment, that itself is trying to analyze through 3 different variables, like 3 different aspects, like whether they are working full time or whether they are working part time or whether they are unemployed, to understand their employment status over there in the location. So when we discuss the rural divorced mothers, nearly 32% of divorced mothers are unemployed over there in the rural community, and 40% of divorced mothers is having part-time engagement, part-time employment opportunities over there in the community, over there in the population. But when it comes to the urban belt, urban area, 88% of divorced mothers is having a full-time, full-fledged work employment opportunity over there in the population, and they are having their own engagements to support their livelihood expenses. And last variable was living arrangements. When we discuss about the living arrangements as a variable, so I conceptualize into 3 different segments. One, whether they are having their own house as a living arrangement opportunity over there or not, or whether the divorced mother is staying in a rented house or not, or whether they are staying with a relative, with any relatives or any associated, like their own, whether they are staying with their own parents or not. So the data shows that among the rural population, 32% of the divorced mothers is staying with their own house, and in urban population also the same data is relevant over there. But in terms of urban population, 52% of divorced mothers are staying in rented house and other settlements. And when we move to the next major variable, social agents of divorced mothers during COVID-19 pandemic. So the impact of social agents I tried to explore through two different variables. First one was number of family members as a support system, whether they have to deal with their distress and that particular situation. And second one, whether they are involving with any kind of self-help group engagements or any type of voluntary activities. So first one, when we discuss about that, the data shows that among the rural population, 44% of divorced mothers is having uh, at least more than two family members to support them during the COVID-19 pandemic situation and also towards that particular crisis. And when it comes to the urban mothers, it's just 40, and more than 5 also it's just 22. So those difference are very much. And when it discuss the uh, there is, we consider there is no family members as a major concern to support their uh, like living expense and other things. In urban divorced mothers, we can see that 38% of urban divorced mothers doesn't have any support of any family members, or they are dealing with themselves. And when it comes to the involvement in self-help groups or any voluntary activities as a major chunk of social engagement, 56% of divorced mothers reported that they are involving with any like any sort of self-help group engagement or voluntary activities. But when it comes to urban divorced mothers, they reported that 70% of them are not involving with any kind of self-help group activities or voluntary activities or any engagements associated to any groups and voluntary organizations. Yeah. Then I was trying to look into the experience, mainly the qualitative data. It's talking about the experience of divorced mothers undergoing divorce during COVID-19 pandemic, mainly gender violence and vulnerability perspective. So the first theme emerged is like the gender violence during COVID-19 pandemic, mainly in terms of domestic violence, abuse during the process of divorce. So through the verbatim and through the understanding, the emerged findings are gender violence and domestic abuse is an important challenge faced by divorced mothers during the process itself. So during the process, they face gender violence and domestic abuse as an important challenge over there. And during the COVID-19 pandemic, the intensity of physical and verbal abuse was higher among the rural population. So um, during this uh, COVID-19 pandemic, among the rural population, the intensity was much more greater. Then financial security and employment are defending the population against the gender violence and abuse. That's a new emerged understanding was there. And financial burden was acting as a barrier to initiate divorce in COVID situation among the rural participants. So that was the major chunk of discussion among domestic violence abuse during process and divorce. And when it moves to the second theme, during the distress and vulnerability among social support and stigma of divorce during COVID-19 pandemic. So the major understanding and finding that emerged was distress and vulnerability of divorced mothers are associated with the financial support and stigma of divorce during the pandemic crisis. So financial support is directly influencing or impacting the population, and also the idea of divorce itself is emphasizing a lot of stigma towards the population during the COVID-19 situation, and that intensity is much more greater over there in the particular situation. Then divorce mothers in rural areas are facing financial issues to initiate divorce, and economic crisis is affecting the well-being of the participants. So to initiate the idea of divorce, whether they are having any abusive episodes and they will be having any series of gender violence episodes, they might be having the idea to initiate divorce, but the social support is not evident over there. At the same time, the opportunities to initiate divorce is much more lesser. first they might be thinking about how, what will be the next challenge if I take up this particular idea of divorce at this point, and what will be the financial implications I will be able to deal with the situation. So such thoughts and ideas were emerged over there in this particular COVID-19 situation. And this economic crisis is affecting the well-being in the sense of physical, financial, and their educational well-being of their participants are also affecting them in terms of COVID-19 pandemic. But in urban population, the divorced mothers have financial security and they are ready to manage their expenses by themselves during the process. So the attitude or the perception changes over there when they're having employability or when they're having education and more opportunities over there to deal with divorce as a new event or a divorce as a new initiative. They're thinking that financial security is helping them to deal with or take up this challenge or take up this particular idea over there in this pandemic crisis. So those different viewpoint or perception is emerging over there. And when we talk about social stigma of divorce as important concern that arise as a challenge for urban mothers. So when we interview or try to understand the perception of divorced mothers, most of the urban divorced mothers is more worried about social stigma of divorce, like how people will be thinking about divorce and what will be my workplace environment will be thinking about divorce, which all other social agents associated to my life will be conceptualizing my idea of divorce. So those things are, they are much more worried than financial or any social support that is available, that is more important over there in this pandemic crisis. And when it moves to the major findings, I'm trying to somehow correlate with or somehow trying to triangulate with the quantitative and qualitative data. Among the rural participants, major issue due to lack of education, and education is reflecting as a major challenge in pandemic crisis. And also among the urban participants, education and living arrangements are exercising as a key support system to deal with the physical challenges of divorced mothers in this pandemic crisis. And the strength and weakness of divorced mothers are associated with the variables like education, employment, social support, involvement of family members, friends, and other personalities in the divorce process, also through the divorce process and also after divorce in this particular situation. Then the social agents like self-help group, religious institutions, then workplace environment, key stakeholders are influencing and improving the life standards of divorced mothers in pandemic during divorce process and throughout the process of divorce. And education and economic participants help the divorced mothers to come up easily than rural participants during COVID-19 pandemic situation. Income of divorced mothers, then the job and employment, education, lack of family support, and lack of time after divorce are challenges linked with social status and the location. Then there is a pattern emerging among the rural divorced mothers that there are income and education is becoming the leading challenging factors towards the economic need of the family during the pandemic crisis. When if the divorced mother is divorced and the child is still with the divorced mother, and if they are not having any social support or any earning member over there in the family, so that expectations and need of the family is directly imposing towards the divorced mother's daily lifestyle, and she herself need to manage with the situation. So the overburden is trying to impose towards the divorced mother over there in the pandemic crisis, and that itself is emerging as a major challenge for them to deal with the situation. Then the urban mothers have social security in terms of financial capability and other external support. So when we discuss about financial capability, mainly in terms of their employability, financial security, and the living arrangements are better for them. So the situations are even much more easier for them to deal with the situation. But they have challenges in terms of social support to share responsibilities among the family members to take care of the emotional need in pandemic crisis. So they are not having enough family members to support the psychological and physical need of and also the financial need of the family. But in terms of the rural divorced mothers, they are having more than 2 or 5 divorced mothers over there, family members over there to deal with the responsibilities and to uh, go about life. But among the urban participants, this gap is really like visible over there in the community, in the population. And being a divorce, when we comes to the conclusion, being a divorced parent can be extremely difficult and stressful in a pandemic crisis. So we discussed about rural urban bifurcations, and also we discussed about different variables, status, location, and economic variables. But when we consider all these factors along with a divorced mother is as a parent, so it is extremely stressful for them to deal with all these challenges over there in a global pandemic situation. So that is also important lines of inquiry that we need to explore more. Then the complete burden of living expenses, including childcare, parenting, falls completely on mother during the crisis situation. And emotional aspect of single mothers are highly impacted, which in turn has an impact on their parenting and child development during this stressful situation. And when it comes to the rural context, has better social support as compared to the urban areas in this COVID-19 pandemic outburst specific to this particular population. So to conclude, we can say that divorced mothers are facing economic, psychological, and social issues during this pandemic crisis, and it is very much important to know about different lines of inquiry and how to go about issue in a micro and macro level and through a micro and macro level inquiries. So these all are the references. Thank you so much.
So thank you, Christine, for focusing on a much neglected area, because the marginalization faced by divorced mother and those who are in the process of divorce are extremely multifaceted, and they have really faced a lot, as all the legal luminaries have been saying. The one aspect which is missing is that because the courts had also freezed, the court proceedings had freezed during lockdown, did it affect their maintenance, those who were dependent on monthly maintenance? And even when the divorce proceedings are on at that time, court gives interim maintenance. What happened to those petitions or those applications in the court, no? What kind of support in terms of maintenance they get in case if they had applied for maintenance?
Yeah, ma'am, among the population during this particular situation, divorced mothers are not getting the maintenance like regularly, or they themselves is having challenges in terms of financial burden. So after they initiated this idea of divorce, then they are going out of house, or whether they are staying with the family members. So they are fully dependent on some external support. One is family support, some can be friends and other social support system. So as a legal and governmental support, there are nothing actually trying to give it to this population directly. But through the study, what I understand is like the participants are the population is mainly trying to deal and manage with the situation with available resources more than this maintenance and other legal support. So they themselves are not thinking about all that. And in 2 participants, I think they reported that they stopped the litigation process of divorce during this particular COVID-19, because the situation is itself more stressful for them. So they are not even thinking about going about more process and dealing with the situation. So that's what how it's emerging among the population.
But were they getting the state support in terms of ration kit and food packets and all that? At least the women in the rural
Yes,
areas,
yes.
those who were in
Yes,
touch
ma'am.
with good.
Yeah, that is available. So that itself is helping them to deal with the situation. Along with the family and social support, the population is trying to manage with the situation, and it's pretty much okay over there in the rural population. But when it comes to divorced mothers, they are working, they are trying to deal with the situation, and scenario is a little bit different. So both of them having their own mechanism and emerged by their own resources, they are trying to manage the situation.
So out of these 30 women from rural and 30 from urban areas, how many women's children were forced out of school system because of online education? Did any one of them discontinue education of these children?
Ma'am, discontinuation of education, I actually didn't explore uh, uh, much actually, but through the in-depth interview, I came across some perspective and understanding that them like the family, both the mother and the children, is having this less interest in terms of education of the children over there in that particular situation. They themselves don't think or feel that, okay, during this pandemic situation, anyway, we have to deal with a lot more over there in the situation. So they having a perception that it's much more a relaxing atmosphere, or much more a more what to say, okay situation. So they are not thinking that it's a distress, or not worrying in terms of dropout, or those things are not there. But as a researcher, I understand that the situation is much more vulnerable, and the address need to be given to the children also, because the more education and that emphasize and intervention will be helpful them to integrate again to educational need for their empowerment and development.
Thank you. Thank you. Very, very insightful and in-depth study. Yeah,
Thank you.
it's your doctoral work. Yeah, thank you. So now we have a last presentation by the experiencing COVID-19, a case study of gender divide among informal sector employment in Idukki district, Kerala, by Alinda George and Dandya Mohan. Are you there, Alinda? Hello?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here. I'm
Yes,
trying to
please.
share the content.
Yeah, please do.
Can you see, ma'am?
Yes. Just have a full screen here.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alinda George. I'm a research scholar in IIT Indore. I'm going to present here a paper prepared by me and Ms. Danya Mohan regarding the paper titled Experiencing COVID-19, a case study of gender divide among informal sector employment in Idukki district of Kerala. The impact of a pandemic like COVID-19 has to be measured not only by the morbidity and mortality rate, but also it is to be measured by the social, economic, and political impacts caused by this. A stressor usually causes maximum impacts on the most vulnerable section of the society. In India, a nationwide lockdown was announced in March 25, 2020, and it made huge impacts on the most vulnerable categories, especially the informal sector employees. In India, almost 90% of workers are in informal sector, and they have a daily hand-to-mouth existence. The Periodic Labour Force Survey of 2017-18 estimated that informal economy of India consists of approximately 411 million workers. According to this survey, in Kerala, total workforce is 127 lakh, and among them, 48.1 lakh are self-employed and 35.2 lakh are casual workers. And these type of informal workers are mainly found in sectors like agriculture, construction, manufacturing, transport, etc. And they may also work as street vendors, domestic help. As these people are not protected by any safety nets, they are immediately vulnerable to poverty when a stressor like a lockdown happens. In Kerala, the lockdown was implemented from March 24 to May 31 by 3 phases. From the second phase onwards, a few relaxations were given. And it is argued that agriculture and related areas are not much affected, and the secondary and tertiary sectors are more affected. But when we are taking the case of informal sector employees, even if it is agriculture or manufacturing or services, they were equally affected because they had no source of income during lockdown. And even after lockdown, even now also, the economic activities have not resumed the situation what it was in pre-lockdown. Though most of the daily job workers have resumed their jobs, most of them are even now affected by either reduced wages or reduced working days. We know that a large proportion of women workers is employed in the lower segment of the informal employment. They are mainly employed as temporary workers or contract workers or like industrial out workers, and they have no secure contracts, they have no worker benefits or social protection. And they also tend to be underestimated in the service. And majority of women are working at low wages also. Then, when a stressor like lockdown happens, it can cause a loss in employment. And this loss in employment can have an immediate effect on income. Thus, income loss can equally affect men and women, but the other impacts may be felt more by women because of their productive as well as reproductive roles. Both the central government and the state government had announced special packages for the people affected by lockdown. Central government has provided free kits and they had announced cash transfers also. Whereas government of Kerala has provided welfare pension in advance, free food grains up to 10 kilograms through ration shops, free food kits through ration shops, and it is continuing even now also. And also the arrangements, fund was allocated to Kudumbashree for providing loans to needy members. And also they had opened community kitchens also to supply food for the needy. Though they have initiated disbursal of all these things, whether it has reached the actual beneficiary is a question. So in this study, we aim to assess the impact of lockdown on informal sector employees, the impacts on their employment, financial impacts and other impacts, and also if they happen to be in quarantine or they contracted COVID, what were the impacts and what was the assistance they received during lockdown. And here, informal sector workers without any employment protection guarantees is taken in our study. And we did the survey through convenience sampling only, and we considered Idukki district only because there is a large scale participation of informal sector in both primary sector also and secondary and services sector also. And we here our sample size is restricted to 50 because we conducted direct interview and telephonic interviews, and so we restricted it to 50, and we are planning to expand it further in later. Though we used Google Forms at first, but because of the larger digital divide among the respondents, we could not. It was not successful, so we tried to stick on direct interview and telephonic interviews. And here is the characteristics of my respondents. You can see that equal number of male and female were selected. 25 male and 25 females were selected. And you can see that, considering the marital status, we can see 80% of the sample respondents are married. Though spouses of most of these people were working, they were also working in informal sector, and they were also suffering from job loss or reduction in working days. And so we can see that only three of the survey respondents have reported that one of their family member, two of their family member have a job in formal sector with a regular employment. All others had family members working in informal sector only. And the average age, you can see the average age is almost in 40s. It means they are in middle-aged people. And 70% of our respondents are from gender category only. And when considering the education of these people, we can see that women are found to be less educated. Women respondents are found to be less educated when compared to men respondents. This is actually because of the fact that when women are becoming highly educated, they either try to work in formal sector or they opt to stay unemployed. And we can see that 70% of our respondents have education level up to 10th class only. And here we try to find out an association between whether education and monthly income is associated, where the special exact test is done, and we found out that there is an association between education and monthly income of the respondent. Those who are not educated or very less educated is finding jobs more in agriculture sector, and they are less paid also. Then we tried to find out an association between gender and monthly income. Here also we found out that there is an association. It means because of it is actually because of the wage gap among the male and female. Actually, the male in informal sector are more paid because they are more involved in skilled jobs, whereas female are more involved in agriculture jobs, and so they are less paid. Then we tried to find out a correlation, an association between gender and education. Also, there is an association between gender and education of the respondent. Usually, it is because less educated women are more employed in informal sector, whereas in case of male, if they have a polytechnic diploma or something, they will enter into this field as electrician or that sort of works, or in construction sector. Then we try to find out an association between gender and the sector of employment. This is the same thing which I discussed earlier also. They are, we can see the women are found in jobs like agriculture, domestic work, or in daily wages, whereas men are finding jobs more in construction sector or self-employed. And if they are working as a daily wager in a shop also, they are paid more than women. So men are likely to have more monthly income and they have less chance to lose job. Then we tried to find out an association between between gender and the number of months they worked after lockdown in 2020, in the year of 2020. But here we could not find any association between the gender and months they worked after a lockdown in 2020, because male and female had equally lost the working days. And the main reason was that the reduction in the working days by employer, because most of the sample respondents which I interviewed were in transport sector. There was less demand in transport sector. There were restrictions in hotels. There were restrictions in tourism. And also there was less demand for electricians or plumbers, etc., due to the economic slowdown. In case of female, the reason was mainly the taking care of children and due to schools closure, etc. Then also the agricultural laborers who are working in fields of others pointed out that people were sitting at home and they were doing agriculture works on their own. So there was less demand for other workers. And also there was a reduction in MGNREGA works due to social distancing norms. This also led to less number of working days after this lockdown also. Then we tried to find out the financial Excuse me, ma'am. I think I have skipped one slide. 1 minute. Actually, this was the employment status. Actually, you can see that 38% of our sample respondents are agricultural laborers. And when income is considered, we can see the difference in the average income. There is a huge difference in the average income among male and female respondents. And when years of working is considered, most of the respondents are working for more than 10 years. It implies that they have lower savings for future and they are vulnerable if any kind of stressor is happening. And it is also noticed that 4 of the respondents have lost their job after lockdown. And we have inquired on them about whether they have any subsidiary income. And on 3/4 of these respondents had no other source of income to thrive on when a stressor is happening or when they are forced to stay inside. They don't have any other source of income. And then we tried to find out what were the financial impacts to them during this lockdown. We can see from this graph that female respondents have reported more financial difficulties when compared to male respondents. And the most reported difficulty was repayment of loan. Though moratorium of loan was provided, it was only for a few months. After that, they had to repay this loan. Then also the purchase of necessities and food items were another issue pointed out by them. And most of these respondents said the free kits provided by government were a major source of relief for them. Then also they had to they were depending more on homegrown vegetables or like or other food items like papaya, jackfruit, tapioca, etc. All these things were eaten more during this time. Then other issues pointed out were payment of electricity bills and other sort of bills, and payment of school fees, and also some respondents have faced even problem for purchasing medicine for their family members or like that. Then we tried to ask them what was their source of expenditure during the lockdown, and we can see almost half of the respondents were depending on past savings. And even in this also there is a difference, that is male were depending more on past savings, while female were depending more on borrowings from others. Though income from land was dependent, but it was only to few respondents. And leave with half salary or advance was given to for respondents, but they are actually in construction sector or like that, like those sort of skilled jobs. So employer needs them more, so they were provided advance salary also. Then we tried to find out whether they faced any other difficulties other than financial thing. And the most reported thing was they got more conscious due to COVID reports in media. That was a major stressor pointed out by almost more than half of the respondents. And we can see that in this case also, the difficulties faced reported by female respondents is more when compared to male respondents. And the second one they pointed out was that they got stressed due to not meeting friends or relatives. Then in case of the other issues, one more main issue was that online class of children were getting affected due to lack of smartphones, and many had to purchase either smartphones or laptops during this time, and this added a financial burden to them. Then also the persons who have lost a job or who have reduced a job during this time, they felt that they lost decision-making power in the family because other family members were controlling all the decision-making and all. So, and in this case also, female is reporting this issue as more. Then to women-specific issues means no male has reported this issue. That is, they are saying about household chores have increased, means unpaid work of women have increased. And even 2 respondents have reported that they could not go for a job as they have to look after the children. Actually, this I think this is very low in number because most of my female respondents are old age and have aged children than school-going children. That is because maybe because of that, only 2 responses came. Then we asked them regarding whether they have been under quarantine or they have been infected with COVID. And 9 of the respondents reported that they have been being under quarantine. And the main issue pointed out by them during this time of quarantine was the income loss happened during this time. And but all of them have got the necessary items during quarantine, either through the health workers or through their friends. And 3 male respondents reported that they were affected with the COVID, and 2 of them suffered health issues also after COVID. Then we tried to ask them what was the assistance they got from government. You can see the type of ration card of the sample respondents. We can see the half of the respondents are in below poverty line category. And among these 50 samples, 2 women have reported that they have no ration card and they were exempted from the assistance by government. And among the 23 rest female, 19 had got ration and free food kits through PDS, whereas 4 did not get any regular kits or ration. And 1 male respondent also did not get ration regularly. These 5 people are mainly in cardamom plantation workers, mainly in cardamom plantation. And these people, those who are having APL card, they reported that they did not get any ration or free food kits regularly. And we have asked whether the family members of any sample respondents are getting welfare pension regularly. Only 3 respondents had family members, old age family members or someone who's getting regular pension, and they reported that they got it regularly. And Kudumbashree loan, COVID loan was provided at the time of after this lockdown. There was a loan provided to Kudumbashree members. It is a women collective. So in that case also 12 respondents, either the respondent's spouse or the respondent. In case of female, it is respondents. Those who are members of the Kudumbashree and those who have applied for it have got the loan. And also we asked them about the MGNREGA works, and almost 10 respondents have reported that either them or their spouse have gone for this work. But because of the social distancing issues, 100 days work was not provided last year. And this is our major findings. We found that gender is associated with income, education, and sector of employment. That is, women employees in informal sector are normally less educated and are more employed as agricultural laborer or domestic worker, and thus are less paid. Whereas men who are possessing a graduation or diploma may also find job in this sector, as they can get skilled jobs and they are paid more. Informal sector employees had faced financial as well as other difficulties during lockdown. The main source of their expenditure was borrowings and past savings, leading them to debt traps. Though men and women were affected, financial impacts were more for women as they depended more on borrowings. Though the rations and other assistance provided by government were a cushion up to an extent, it alone won't solve the issues faced by them. Other difficulties like increase in unpaid work and loss of job due to taking care of children are felt by women only. Also, the anxiety due to media reports and the stress due to not meeting family or friends were felt mostly by women, as they had little chance to go out during lockdown. And our study has some limitations because of small sample size. So it may not be representative of the whole informal sector workers in Idukki, but we are trying to expand it further by increasing the sample size. And we have most of our survey was mainly through telephonic interview, and it may not accurately give the whole picture. And I'm concluding, this study is trying to identify the impacts of lockdown on informal sector employment in Idukki district. And it found that impacts among workers is very high, both in terms of finance and as well as other impacts, as they are not protected by any social protection measures. The study found that the impacts are more gendered in nature, and this should be taken into consideration while planning policy measures for informal sector. These are my references. Thank you.
Please unmute.
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Hello, ma'am. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes, yeah. Now we can hear you. Yes, yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Hello. So, are there any questions, participants? Do you have any questions or interventions or any clarification that you want? Oh, no response. So, Professor Rangaswamy and Dr. Preeti Dhillon, do you have to say anything?
Yeah, I just want to say thanks.
Yeah.
So any questions? Then I will close.
Yeah, so I'll just give my concluding remarks that all the 6 papers have been extremely important, and the scenario that emerges is right from global concerns, where 244 countries which are affected by corona, out of which 25 countries which proactively combated corona, 45 countries did not do anything, and remaining countries, they just went by in an ad hoc fashion. So only when their prime ministers and ministers were affected by corona, they started taking action, that too in a piecemeal way. So it is in this context where these 6 papers are bringing out right from the macro scenario to the national level discourses around health emergency that have emerged, and also some of the important literature which has been generated right from the UN system to the national level researches and the government official sources. The central thing which comes out is a differential impact, gender-based differential impact of this health emergency because of the social location of a person. 3 studies which are very important, which focused on the middle class women's dilemma of multiple responsibilities, work from home, looking after children, very important, the unpaid care burden, domestic violence. And the last 2 studies, which are very important, they talked about the both the middle class as well as the working class women. So the intersectional marginalities also were captured. Gender binary, that we need to think about gender binary, and also those who are the most excluded people, LGBTQIA and the transgender community, about which not much focus is there. Only in Kerala and Tamil Nadu that we see the planners are focusing on that. Other thing is about the question of indebtedness, which came out in the last paper, and what kind of relief measures which the state has taken. That I think in 2 papers, I think it came out, because Kerala has been very proactive in doing that. Question of indebtedness was also brought in the last paper. But I think overall, the micro reality and the field-based studies which they brought out, and some of the important literature that has come out through rapid assessment surveys in last 11 months, I think more or less it corroborates the findings. And I think it's very important that along with this pandemic of corona and COVID virus, we also need to deal with the shadow pandemic, not only of domestic violence, but shadow pandemic of all sorts of differentiation and exclusion and discrimination that society, whatever inequalities which were existing in a pre-corona phase, they have been exacerbated under the pandemic, and we need to be very, very sensitive to in our response. So I think one presentation which talked about women-led development. So I think that is also very important, that how we need to understand the gender responsiveness, whether it is in budgetary allocation, financial planning, fiscal measures that government is taking, and also the civil society response. One thing that has not come out in these 6 papers is what kind of social solidarity that emerged, people to people solidarity at the time of pandemic. But I think that can also be focused on in the future research work. Thank you very much. Over to, Dr. Preeti Dilla.
We do not have any questions, no? Now?
No,
Yeah.
no.
I think we extended more than half an hour.
Yeah.
I was wondering earlier that we'll have less, because less people were present in starting. But
We were
these
democratic. Nobody will go dissatisfied. Everyone will be happy with you and me. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone joined, and they were very comprehensive papers, very detailed papers. So that's why it took long time. So I would like to say thanks to all the participants who presented their papers. First of all, thank you to chairperson, Professor Vibhuti Patel, for giving your precious time and also discussing the papers. So I'm thankful on behalf of our committee. We really thankful for you. And we can close now because our panel session is going on. 5:30 it is started. So thank you very much. Okay. Just last minute, can we have one picture? Others can open their videos who were presenting the paper. I'll take one click. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you, Preeti.
Hi, hello.
Hello. Excellent paper. All of you did
You
so
are
much
with son
work.
or daughter?
Daughter. I'm switching off video. It will come otherwise in that.
No, your picture should come. You are working mother with children.
It has to be there. Baby has to be there. Yeah. Work from home, children are going to be around you. Please keep it on. Yeah. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. It will be
Yeah.
memory, historic memory, even for the baby. When she grows up,
Yeah.
she'll know how my
Mm.
mother.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
Dr. Preeti Dilla. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Rangaswamy.
Bye-bye. Thank you,
Bye
ma'am.
bye.
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 Bye-bye.
Bye.